Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your sun in Virgo and your moon in Leo. These signs are adjacent to one another, and we're talking about the elements of earth and fire. Suffice it to say that earth and fire are very, very different. And if we want to like kind of boil it down to what it could be all about, we could talk about practicality and passion. So the Virgo influence is all about organization, productivity, and being down to earth. And the Leo fire influence is very creative, passionate, spontaneous. Fire is spontaneous, although I would say that Leo, being a fixed sign, may be more anchored in certain behaviors and patterns. So, in that sense, there might be some, um, common ground or things that are supportive by these two signs being sun and moon in combination. Leo rules the fifth house, which is very romantic. It's about love, it's about creativity, and it's also about your inner child. And so the playfulness that comes from living a life where you never lose uh, that sense of yourself that is, I would call it the eternal sense of self that is always creative. If you think about, if you observe children, they have a natural impulse towards creativity and they want to create. So where does that um, start to go in a different direction? And of course, there are some people that are creative their whole life. We know that, but a lot of people kind of put that on the shelf at some point. And it has nothing, I'm not talking about anything to do with talent. I'm just talking about that urge um, to kind of express ourselves, the creative self expression. That's what Leo is all about. And Virgo rules the sixth house, which is very practical. It's very much about one's health, one's work. So it can be all aspects of work, your office, your coworkers, the work you're doing, how you work, your attitude towards work. And so, one of the things that I would say about this combination is that you probably are a hard worker. And I'm not saying that as a compliment, I'm not saying that as an insult, I'm saying that as a statement. The signs of, one word that I was searching for when it comes to Virgo is constructive. Actually, there's another word, but I can't think of it, but constructive also works. And so basically, what it means is that Virgo people tend to want to do things that are purposeful, that are going to add to life, that are going to improve situations. So sometimes we can think of people like that as workaholics or something because they might always be doing things. They might not be too involved in downtime where they're just taking advantage of hobbies, which, by the way, the fifth house is also the house of hobbies, what you do during your leisure time. Well, Virgo people may say, what is that? Um, so that can sometimes present as being a workaholic, when in fact the intention behind it is to be constructive with one's behavior and always do things that have fruitful results. that are not just kind of pissing away your time. Um, and, a person who, let's say, who has a sun in Leo, or maybe, another sign that enjoys their free time, might say having downtime is productive because it gives people a rest. It gives people an alternative so that they're not always, in work mode, and so that they can like let their hair down, and it gives them time to be laid back. The fifth house is the house of pleasure, and so the the Virgo wants to be the Puritan, be puritanical. The Leo may be consumed by pleasure. So there may be kind of this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde quality with this combination, where the person, they might even, I was going to say like bipolar, not talking about actually what that means in a psychological diagnosis, but in terms of extremes, going from one extreme to the other. And there are people like that who they are very, they maybe they eat a very pure diet, and then they fall off the wagon, or it might not even be that they fall off. They decide consciously that now they want to indulge, and they become very indulgent, and then they go back to their other way, and that maybe that works for them. I don't know, but they can't seem to have that middle ground. They have, these kinds of extremes. Now let's talk about the actual placement of these signs, because the sun is in Virgo and the moon is in Leo. So the sun, to me, and Leo is ruled by the sun, so that there's that connection there. But to me, the sun sign is the ultimate. So it's going to be how the person chooses to shine their light on the world. And that the light can be your essence, and it could be, if you want to say your personality, I suppose you could put it that way, but it's deeper than that. I mean, it's what makes you you. And so there has to be that authenticity that comes along with it. Um, with Virgo, Virgo is a sign of the servant. And so Virgo people can sometimes even like literally take on the role of being the support system to somebody who society may call a quote unquote important person, to make their life more efficient. Virgo is all about efficiency. So, um, because of that, there has to be a certain humility. There has to be the ability to put the ego aside. If you've ever been in a restaurant and the waitress, I don't call people servers, I call them waiters and waitresses, and the waitress has an attitude because she doesn't like her job. Um, it could be a waiter. I don't want to pick on women, but but I just say waitress. Um, and you can just tell that she resents, like she almost treats you like you're kind of lording over her and making her slave away. That kind of attitude is not coming into uh, the service industry, in a positive way. And yet, I think most of us have experienced the exact opposite of that, of somebody who is really like becomes at one with their service. And it's not about them anymore. It transcends the ego, it transcends the separate self. And the person, it's like they're serving themselves by serving someone else. This is what we call service to others rather than service to self. And I actually characterize work as service to others when I talk about Virgo in the sixth house. To me, that's what it's really all about. That's why I don't really like the word work anymore, because it implies drudgery. and toiling away at something and resisting it and feeling like, you don't want that in your life. And that's not the attitude that leads to um, approaching things from a higher perspective. That's the lower perspective. So um, the the sun is going, could indicate career goals and the career itself. With Virgo, it can be anything in the healthcare field, and it can be anything in the educational system because Virgo is ruled by Mercury. Um, because Mercury can also be about communication, I would say the media, but especially I feel like journalism, anything that is nonfiction, that you have to gather facts. I'm I should have my tongue firmly planted in my cheek, but I'm not going to go there with journalism today. And how does the moon fit into career? Well, the moon can be influential for sure if the person is creative or nurturing, because these are qualities, or intuitive, because these are qualities that we would associate with the moon. So if you have a moon sign in fire, like Leo is, or in water in particular, you may gravitate towards fields that are or may long for it. So it may be an emotional desire for anything that is connected to um, artistic endeavors. And this can be an interesting one because I don't see Virgo people as particularly outgoing. I mean, well, they can be outgoing, but um, showing off in the sense of like Leo does with performance, but the moon may overshadow the sun because of Leo being nondescript, and that may give the person a certain confidence to be able to go on stage and perform. Because truth be told, people who are um, Virgo, have prominent Virgo. I have the moon in Virgo. There can be insecurity with the sign when it's in a very influential position. I don't think it has to be the sun, and I don't think all sun in Virgo people may be insecure. Maybe it is more of a moon in Virgo thing because the moon may show more of the shadow side of the sign. The sun may give the strength of that sign, but I do feel that Virgo people may be hard on themselves because Virgo tends to be perfectionistic, and that can lead to inhibition, which is the antithesis of what you want when you are trying to perform. Um, you have to be able to have abandon when you are on a stage, and you have to let go of that critical voice within yourself in order to not be stiff, to really get into something. So that could be the only detriment or the deterrent to being able to fully embody that, if somebody truly does feel that they want to be a performer of some sort. But there is going to be that creative inner life of the person. Um, for some, if they are not engaging in it, they may create drama because Leo is very dramatic. So it's very important when you have this combination that you find some outlet, creative outlet, because you don't want to start dramatizing your emotions instead of channeling it in some kind of inspirational output. that others will, um, you know, be inspired by. I was trying to look for another word. Because really, ultimately, if you think about it, that is one of the reasons for creativity in art is that we inspire other people. It's not just some kind of self-indulgent thing. It really does um, assist in the collective in raising the vibration because I think ultimately it's because we add color to life. Because if we just are dealing with life in terms of an eternal to-do list, which truth be told a lot of Virgo people wouldn't be that upset about. It gives color to this existence and elevates it to something more than just a mere um, ticking off different things that you have to do for that day, chores, errands that you have to run. Did we come here for that? I don't think so. So I feel that that can be something that is very helpful to other people and to yourself to be able to tap into that. I think this is a good combination for a parent, quite frankly, because I think that you will always have that inner child with the moon in fire. And so you will be able to tune into children and their motivations much better, and that makes for a better parent. The parent who is authoritarian is the parent who is bought into this idea that when you become big enough or an adult, that you should dictate to others. I think this is such a humane combination because the Sun in Virgo gives an intelligence, but it's a down to earth intelligence. Unlike the air signs, which can be very abstract, and that can make them wig out into these things that are not grounded, quite frankly. Um, you also have this warmth, which Leo provides, and especially being in the moon position, this is very generous, a generosity of spirit. I do think this gives a little bit more ego because with the moon in Leo, the person may have actually experienced uh, feeling invisible growing up. And so that's always one of their Achilles heels, like not being acknowledged. And when people don't feel acknowledged, they tend to try to gain attention. And typically Virgo is, like I said, very nondescript, and to me that's a form of humility. Not needing to draw attention to yourself is a form of humility. There's that, the narcissism of needing to be the center of attention. But sometimes that is born out of some sort of neglect when the person is growing up. Of course, it's not, I'm getting way too bogged down in that. This can't tell all of the story. You have to look at the whole chart for that. But I'm just saying that, there might be a little bit more ego where the person is sensitive to any kind of tendency of others to overlook them. And then that can trigger your insecurities, probably. Um, but I feel that this is a very productive combination, a very good worker, but also someone who may have very good ideas. And they could be creative, but they could also be very efficient. When I think of Virgo, I think of somebody who has a system for how to do things, and it's right. I actually worked for someone who had this combination, and that person made a very good manager because Virgo has attention to details, and Leo is a natural leader, so this can assume that leadership that typically Virgo wouldn't have. But here is where these two signs being adjacent comes into play, because if you have inner planets in Virgo and or Leo, which is pretty much a given, I'm talking about Mercury, Venus, and or Mars in these signs, that could tilt the balance one way or the other. So, for instance, if you have Mars in Leo, you could really make an entrance and you would be a lot less nondescript. But if you have a lot of Virgo or even Cancer on the other side, I'm thinking of Leo. Cancer is two signs before you, but because it is so close, you could have Venus in Cancer. Venus is pretty close to the sun. It can't be more than 45 degrees from the sun. So, but it's possible that it is two signs away. And and the moon can be any sign and the rising sign can be any sign. So those can definitely factor into um, your personality traits as well. But looking at it from just those two signs, I think, like, in terms of love, you may be cautious initially, but then you give your heart to the person and you're very steadfast. Um, and you may have that romantic nature because your Venus could be in Cancer, your Venus could be in Leo, or come to think of it, it could be in Libra. And then you're talking about totally somebody who is very romantic too. Okay, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.